So let's get going. If you are at home and you have yourself any props, if you've been to our studio anyway, you would have a golf ball, tennis ball, spiky ball, any of those. If you don't have anything like that, maybe a glass bottle, a cold glass bottle, just to roll under your feet, potentially, or a metal one, depending on what you have accessible to you. The other thing we have is a rubber band. So, any of you passing by, or if I see you in the next week or so, there should be some left over. You're more than welcome to take one of these. And also, we have golf balls we normally give away. These elastic rubber bands, they're quite thick, as you can see. And the idea is to help you understand a little bit more of toe correction. Now, I'm not going to divulge too deeply into toe correction and foot correction because those things are Pilates-based exercises to help you correct different problems you might have with your physical disposition. So, Halkus valga, the work with the deformity around your big toe. Sometimes it closes in like that. If you have that going on, we must work on the external movement for the feet to have a good foundation and to separate each toe. Okay, so sometimes you will need to know certain words, but really this is not about going extra into the science. This is more about you getting to know your body and understanding what is best to do in terms of footwork. Okay, so I have here my friend, client who will be also joining us, but I'll bring the camera down so you can see my foot as I start to work. However, the most important one for now is not the golf ball. We're going to start with the rubber band. Okay, the other thing I would have, you would have seen, shall I say, in the studio is these straps that are sort of made here and designed for a reason of to allow me not to grip so much. So elastic resistance bands, normally you have to grip quite a lot to hold on to the end. So this has a nice, loose, relaxed feeling. And of course, you could work in different ways with this because it is elasticated. It also holds your yoga mat. But the main thing for now, if let's say you couldn't reach, what I've done here is brought the knee up and to work on my foot, for instance. And sometimes that might be too much for your hips. If you're able, you would go down to touch your toes. Again, after a while, that might be too much for your back. So you have to find a happy medium that works for you. So let's say when we work with the elastic band, we're going to work on the big toe separately. So this loop could just be thrown down and you could have enough rope where you are sitting nice and tall and work from this level. So it really is versatile. And there's many things we can do with that. But let's move on to working with what we have. If you don't have a rubber band, you can simply use your hands. And what we're going to do is take it down. You can see here I've got my little slippers. This is from Regal Nails. Shout out to Regal Nails. They still are giving away 10% discount. If you remember from our open day last year, we were able to give that and extend that to our members, but that is still on offer at their studio. So FYI. Okay, so I've got the rubber band here. We're going to put that in the big toe, so around sort of midway. We don't want to go too far in. And then I'm going to touch it to the second one. And I'm literally going to sit back up nice and tall. So what I've done here is have my feet hip width. And I'm leaving that be. And I'm separating the feet just a little bit. And making sure the big toes are not overworked, but they are trying to work equally. So the left foot is doing slightly different to the right. If you want to come forward, you can sit on this one if you prefer. So we've got the feeling of disconnect sometimes, and we need to use our breath to feel the connection of the two working together. So inhale, exhale. If we're using our Pilates technique, we can use the nose to breathe in and breathe out through the mouth as well. So there's two ways to look at it. We've got the feeling of the big toes being pulled away into each other, but instead of them turning into each other, what we want to just achieve is a slightly open gap between big toe and the second toe, and that's it. Holding it like that in itself, separating it just enough for resistance to kick in. Okay, we'll manage about 10 to 20 seconds and then we can relax. So you can close the feet and then come back to work. So exhale a little bit wider if you can on the next round. So right now you might think this is actually hard work. This is not a stretch, but it is going to reformat what you've been used to. Your brain is saying, no, I don't want to do this, but actually this is how the foot should be to start with. So that gap, we're squeezing the big toe and the second toe all the time, especially as we're walking, something to think about. Okay, and then we're going to come back and release. Now, we have what's called the toe corrector. Just on that note, I'll show you briefly. I should have this right next to me ready to show you. So this is what we're imitating. The work with the foot corrector is actually what's been quite really strong and working like we would do on the reformer. It's the same idea. We're trying to promote with a cheaper version, which is the elastic band. I remember at the time this cost me £60. So if you were to practice at home, maybe single movements like so. Otherwise, you keep hold and stay and breathe like we did with the rubber band. Okay, the other thing we can do is hold. So this takes it into work as opposed to stretch, but we need to get all these ranges of movement into the big toe, especially if you're used to pinching it as you're walking. Okay, so instead of using the gadget, the official toe corrector, we have just used a rubber band to achieve the same way. Okay, now we're going to use some wax, massage wax from Songbird. Nice balancing wax. We don't want to put too much, but yet we want to make sure there is enough, just a little touch for us to start to feel the movement. So there's the label on top, just FYI. If you ever need to get different wax, this is the one I'm going for, the beautiful balancing wax, also known as the woman's scent, this one. Okay, so it used to be the woman's scent, and we just rub the top of the foot now, just a little rub, and just get to know your feet. Okay, so I'm going to start working in different sections. And as you know, the ankle is the most sort of stubborn area. We might not be even sure what is happening with the foot. So I just want to make sure you understand the foot should have 4 different movements. So we call the first one, as you point, plantar flexion. And then we've got dorsiflexion, pushing the heel away. And then as you turn inwards, inversion, known also as supination, and then eversion, known also as pronation. So we want to work in all 4 ranges, and that's what we're going to make sure we're doing today and releasing any tension. Okay, to start with, I'm going to start around the toes at the top. Some of you might have toes that are already lifted and elevated. That sort of suggests there's tension at the top, working into the tibialis anterior towards the knee and being pulled forward. So we just release any tension, gently rubbing side to side and across. Okay, so if you don't feel any tension there, we'll move on underneath. Okay, so I'll move the camera. Bear with me. This is our first live, hoping to capture everything we're doing so you can make sure you don't miss out. So right under the toes here in the little bumps, I'm using my thumb and going quite deep. Depends on your person really, but the deeper you go, you might sort of go, oh, I didn't know this was a bit tight. So find the knots wherever it might be. Anything?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to keep going until you feel that's easing off. So just to get comfortable, you can keep moving around, by the way. You don't have to be in the same spot. Yeah. You can change hands, and I'm going right through and pressing into it. Okay. So of course, an hour is never enough for one foot. I mean, we could definitely do one foot, but two legs, impossible to do in an hour. So I might skip certain parts as long as we have captured enough to give you. You can always come back to it or do one leg only and do the other one next time. It's up to you. So if you feel there is still a need to carry on, if you feel knots anywhere, just stay. Keep your upper body, your torso relaxed, your breath going. Remember, that's the key to everything. When it hurts, we tend to use too much tension in the body. That shoulders might be hunching. We might even stop the breath cycle. So find that rhythm, okay, and then relax. We're going to work in the middle between that big toe where we were earlier. If you can come back underneath and just see if there's anything right there. So especially if you've been used to squeezing the toes as you walk. And again, you might not even know you do it as you do it, but how do we know this happens? When we find there's tension there, there's definitely a reason that tension was building up. Okay, so let's find it. If there's nothing there, move on, going to the top. Now, this is what they would refer to as the meridian line. So in terms of, if you've had acupuncture before, this is an area you might have had quite a lot of tension. So instead of rubbing, I would suggest you sort of push down and hold. So try not to bend your thumb into a deep curve. We want to keep it straight as much as possible. And we're going to use the soft, fleshy part. Okay, so when you're pressing, you're not bending into your thumb joint. You're actually going to use your shoulder. You're keeping everything relaxed and you just hold. So find a pressure point for you and just stay. Okay, so wherever that is, hold it. And then coming back up, wherever you find more knots, you just stay again. Focusing on that breath. Yeah, this one is really tender, so I would suggest you go a couple of times, back down, start again. So the shoulder might start tensing, maybe change hands. I would suggest you can even use the index finger at the bottom and like a pinch, you can squeeze between the two. Okay. I'm sure you don't mind the fact that you can't see my head with this recording. His main thing is foot, so I will keep the camera directed on the legs. So we've got a couple of breaths holding. Again, the more vigorous the hold, you're going to feel it. Now I'm bending my thumb at this point because I'm using the two fingers. So I'm changing hands, making sure I don't put too much tension on my upper body. And I'm going up slightly, this time with the straight finger and pressing down again. Okay. So we just give that a little break. We're going to just flatten all the way across. Relax all the toes. And we're going to move upwards towards the back of the foot. So we're going to go to the Achilles tendons now, just a little bit more touch. We don't want to be too oily when we do things because the friction, you'll end up losing that control and the grip. So I love using the massage wax, but yes, it can be too greasy if you put too much on. So sometimes certain things we do, you want to start off without any and just see how your hands move. Okay, so going into a simple up and down action, just focus around the heel, calcaneus. So we're going to go follow the line round and back up. I'm being very gentle here. It's quite a tender spot. Just tracing it back up. Okay, let's make sure we do both sides. So if I turn this way, you can see across. Yeah, relax the toes. Yeah, good. So yes, it can be really tender. So this is literally tracing the line. You don't have to do any effort here. Just know where you're feeling tender. Okay, lovely. Now we go back to just rubbing the foot, give it some love. And we're going to turn, so we get to the sole of the foot now. We're going to go all the way. We trace that line downwards earlier. And we're going to follow it to the sole of the foot. So as you get there, think of the arch of your foot now. We want to follow the arch. So you're going up towards the big toe and then coming back. Just the arch, round and round, semicircle. We start around the heel and we're going back up. I'm turning around for camera, but obviously please be careful about your posture. We get so fixated on working, sometimes we tend to do other things wrong. Upper body starts to curve or tense up, shoulders hunching. So maybe sitting higher, sitting lower, whatever it is that you need to adjust. There are more chairs in the back room if you need. So we've got the feeling of control and the breath. Okay, so as you're going deeper and deeper, you will find that tender spot. So we're just going to hold now. I'm using my thumb. Going to go up and in and press. So shoulders are relaxed. I'm going to lift the camera so you can see now. Upper body is really key. Okay, so really key to keep your breath going. It's not very nice. Especially if you have semi-flat or flat foot. If you think, why am I in pain? That's because of that, unfortunately. So I was saying in my last video, how do you know what your actions are when you're not wearing your shoes? So let's say you're flat-footed or semi-flat, and you think, oh, I'm wearing my insole, so I'm safe. But when you're taking your shoes off, at any point in the day, we still will have used those muscles incorrectly. So as you press onto the foot, it could go from really high arch sometimes even to semi-flat and then flat and squash it down where the arch should be sustained. And as you hold, the big toe should still be down on the floor, right? But yet we can end up really sort of cupping the foot. If somebody has a high arch, for instance, really exaggerated curve. And from that, as soon as you stand up, you might be semi-flat footed. You don't know until the action starts to kick in. So when you're walking versus when you're stood up still, those things can be very different. Okay, so if that feels okay, we're going to move on. Bringing the opposite hand where you felt the most tension in that arch, we're going to press into it. So we're going across and into the foot. Again, camera low. There we go. Okay, so pressing in and holding. So try not to bend that thumb. We're going to make sure you support it using the index finger, and then you're going in. So when you hold, it should be up to 8 seconds, and then releasing. Okay, and then find another spot. So we're going to trace that big toe all the way up and releasing. And releasing. Okay, very good. So once you've done that, you can relax. I'm going to give it a little shake. Well done. Okay, so when you feel ready, come back to a nice level. It's like a little pancake. We're going to flatten the foot, spreading the joy across big toe to little toe. And we're going to go into a little bit more work for the Achilles tendon. So we've got the index finger and the thumb, whichever position, if you want to face towards it and away from it, it's up to you. I think it's stronger when you use the opposite hand, depending how you can sit. We're going down towards that heel again. So this is really tender on the inside. I don't know about you. We're using that breath, okay? Yeah, don't be too soft with it. I'm going to have a little sip. Oh my goodness. So now I found a spot. I'm going to hold it. I told you I need this more than most of you, I think. I'm quite excited today. Can't wait to sit down. This is good. After your walk, it's going to be really good for you. Yeah, I'm back. So don't put that tension onto the hand. So keep having lots of breaks in between so the hands are not taking the toll. And breath. So if you've done Pilates with me or you've known me to talk about breathing, this is everything right now. Breath. We don't want to hold it because this is quite intense. You want to be letting it go. As the tension releases, you're going to open the mouth. You're going to let it go. So I'm holding the toes just so they don't react. Sometimes you might find you're straining. So just a little feedback. And then hold again. It does get easier, I promise. This is not something we do regularly enough, but if you did, just imagine, considering how much we do on our feet, how much walking, standing, all of that. Do you think we treat the feet enough? You know, this is nothing compared to how much we use it. But, okay, so we'll give that a little break. We'll turn towards the outside now. If you think about the ankle itself, sometimes there's really a lack of range because there's a blockage all around the joint. To touch, there should be no painful sensation, but sometimes you might even physically be able to see there's some sort of a inflammation, perhaps. If that is the case, what shall we do? Regularly, you can think about doing some sort of release through sort of foot massage type of I forget what they call it, the stuff that has the small sort of feedback with electronic devices you might be able to buy, you know, things like that. However, there's a very simple technique called friction rub where we could literally do semicircles all around the joint. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is a very light touch. It's just to kind of identify if there is any tension. For me, it's absolutely okay. But some people, just the touch in itself, you might see, oh, yes, there is liquid in there. If there is inflammation, that's not a problem. You can still work in a way without any harm. We're going to use the outside of that realm. So not pressing directly on any liquid, anything that you might feel. It would be just underneath it. And we're going to work all the way around it. Okay, so first you're going to start behind the ankle joint and see how that feels. Normally, if you've done anything that we should address, it's normally going to feel very awkward at the back. Okay, so a little tear. There's two grades, normally one or two. If it's a small tear, you might not even have known you've done it. You're still walking on that foot. That's where it's going to be painful the most. So still using that breath technique, in and out. So the reformers come in very handy. I can turn to show you in different ways, but the lower the seat, the more uncomfortable you will be. Okay, so I really suggest something like this. You might need to have a break and come back. Ideally, get your partner to do it. That's the best way. Anyone you're living with, just be like, hey, help me out. But this rub, they say you can do it for up to 20 minutes. There is no way anybody will do that for that long. I know that much. So it doesn't matter what you get up to, even if it's for 1 minute, be proud of your achievement, okay? Because it's consistency that's going to get you to feel good. So if the back is starting to numb up, what we're looking for is out of 10, how painful is it? So if anything goes up to 8, okay, fine, carry on. 9, 10 is too much, maybe bring it down. So how much effort you're putting in, you can reduce. And then from there, keep it constant. What will happen is it will start to either numb up or it will stay the same. Whichever way, we don't want it to get worse. The first two, no problem. Then as you go forward, again, you can use your index finger. You might find a different sensation. I'm just changing hands so you can see, but this is going across and forward. So if that part is feeling a bit stuck, you will really struggle with your ankle range of movement. So this one is a real essential, okay, I would say, especially if you know you're going to go doing different tasks. Walking is enough, man, but if you're a runner, things like that, if you're doing high intensity, please, please, please make sure you address this at least once a week, and then obviously do your basic calf stretches when you get back. Okay. So time flies when you have fun. I tell you, this one, we can spend all day just doing this one, I'm sure, but let's move on. So the next task, same thing. You can stay up there. I'm going to give you a little bit of calf release. So I'm taking the cream or the wax and start to gently rub up the leg. So just think about two calf muscles. Your first one, bottom calf. If you think about the line with your Achilles tendon, sometimes it starts to turn if we've been walking on the foot incorrectly for so long. And what we don't want is for it to snap. So it's very hard for you to visualize what I'm saying right now, probably, but this recording, we will edit and have it with the presentation. We normally show you a presentation, the first session of the foot workshop, and then we do a strengthening workout, and then the second one is normally the massage. So we flipped it around this year because it's really a weekend that majority have spent either on their feet too long or because of the bank holidays sat down watching the royal festivities. So either way, this is to kind of get your circulation going. And it's such a lovely thing, especially after a shower, after a bath. It's just a lovely way, regardless whether you do your calf stretches often enough or not. It's something I encourage you to do. Even in the bath, if you are relaxing, you can use your index finger. Just promote simple line up. I'm only focusing on the lower calf right now. Notice it might not feel like anything. It might feel a bit tight. If it doesn't feel like anything, it's because you're not using it enough, okay? It should feel a little bit tight if you know that is a hard-working foot. You get to that place where you think, oh, that's a bit knotty. Stay there, limit the range, and keep going. And then as you go, maybe across slightly to the outside. Especially if it's the inversion preferred on this foot, that supinating foot. It'll be a little bit on the outside. So I've used the side of my hand now We can change techniques all the time. We can keep correcting the spine. That's the key, making sure you're not taking the work into your back. Okay, so now moving on, we're just gonna little fist handful, hold and then rest, hold and rest, and rest. And then we'll come back to that calcaneus move, shape all the way up. This time, earlier we were going down towards the arch, now we're going up. Finding any knots, staying there, 8 seconds, and back. You can use 2 hands if you want to go a bit harder. Yes, it's painful. That's why we're doing 2 segments. I always say, give it a break and come back again and redo the second time round. You've already adapted, but you've given yourself a little break. Mentally, it's a very important thing to do. If it's too strong, you'll just hold your breath and clench your body. Okay, so we'll move it back up, a little clench. So if you think about your Achilles tendon, so the line I was saying earlier, it might start to turn. So now we're pinching on both sides and coming up. Pinching on both sides and coming up. It's almost redirecting the flow. Get the blood working in the places it hasn't been able to reach. Just like that friction rub. If there's scar tissue or anything like that in those areas, there would have been no circulation. Okay, so we've done enough on that, and we'll move up to the calves again. So same thing we're doing, but a bit more vigorous now, going deeper and going higher to the secondary calf muscle. So soleus, and then we've got gastrocnemius at the top. Where they meet in the middle, you're going to find is the strongest bit. Do what you can to give yourself a good range of movement. And as you lift, if you don't feel it's strong enough, use that index finger on the side, press and up, press and up. We can do 2 hands together. And then at the front, your tibialis anterior. This muscle here, I suggest using your foam roller. You've got 2 stabilizers either side. And no 2 feel the same anyway, but do your best to kind of run your thumb upwards. And notice it's very delicate. It's like a paper cut if you're sensitive there. Not for everyone, but it is a delicate process sometimes. So be gentle, maybe use just the palm. We're just promoting a bit more positive thought in the mind, especially if this is the first time you're doing it. It might be a bit intense. If you're going to use a foam roller, our online video library has a video, full hour video actually, to massage your full body. We're going to make that available as a one-off piece video separately to the library for just a view, pay-per-view option very soon. We'll also be editing this video, bringing the presentation as part of it, so you can visualize all the stuff that is necessary for your footwork correction. So once you've got that blood rushing back, we're going to leave it there for this foot and move on to the second one. Time flies when you have fun, as I say. We are running late for second leg, poor leg. So before we do too much up the leg, we're going to skip the part of past the ankle. We'll quickly repeat the steps and then use the golf ball to enhance what we've just done with the hand. Okay, so let's start with the toes, just all around, lightly spreading. We get to the top. And naturally, if you started with the dominant foot, you might find this side is a lot easier. That's good. So we've got the in between the big toe. So don't forget, if you haven't got a golf ball, you can use a glass bottle, you can use a metal bottle, you can use a spiky ball, tennis ball, a small one of any kind. So on this foot, you might find different connection in your body. So this is why we need to understand both legs, what they get up to. They're not always the same. If one foot is used to inversion or supination, the other one will be doing eversion or pronation. So you have to think about, why am I sensing different types of discomfort? That's why. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just being aware is important. Everything happens for a reason, and of course, the pelvis is the main thing we need to be assessing. So our movement optimization therapy looks at assessing your body individually and talking to you about what you do and what changes you need to make permanently to make things better. If that's something you're interested in, you can definitely book in for a free Zoom consultation and we can talk about that. But this is literally looking at one joint as opposed to all the different joints. The friction rub, for instance, can be applied for your knees, it can be applied for your shoulder. Lots to think about. So we'll do another 5 minutes. The meridian line is feeling sensitive for me here, so I'm going to hold on to it. You might think, no, I don't feel anything at all. So if that's the case, you move on to the ankles. And checking each toe, you can really feel the differences. Okay. Remember to support your thumb. Always have the index finger at the back of the thumb so you're not bending into the thumb. Always working from the biggest joint, which is the shoulder, girdle, and breath. Okay, so I want to go into the golf ball now, the last segment of our session. Yes, you can pause or rewind, shall I say? This is live, so if you want to go back to finish off the leg going up to the knee, just go back a step. Look what we've done with the initial foot, and then work your way up. So all the way up to the calves, and come back to the golf ball if you wish. Now, the golf ball is an essential part of foot therapy here, so I always give one out where possible, just because it's quite full on, but it gets to it more so than you bending and trying to touch everywhere and do it yourself. Obviously, if people come for a leg massage here, they do get this footwork included. However, with a golf ball, if you're sat in a good range, so not too low, not too high, it can be that you just hold where your tension is and literally press down and hold. Okay, so yeah, let's not play football with it. Let's make sure there's tension where you're holding it, and if there is, you just hold and you breathe. So in and out, never holding the breath. And if you feel you want to go back or forth and just sort of trace any other areas, you can do that, or you can stay still. It really is down to you how you work with this. But because we've done the hand manipulation, you should already have a lot more tolerance. And of course, if you're using a bottle, I said a cold bottle really just to give you an extra relaxed feeling, but it can be any bottle. Obviously, don't smash the bottle. The plan is to just roll it. If you have hypermobility, you're going to be very sensitive. So the golf ball is an absolute no-no. Hypermobile foot, it could be just one toe that's really painful. It could be really that sensitive that you might think it's the end of the world when I give you a golf ball. So I'd rather you don't push yourself. You start off something easy. I say easy, but it depends on how you see it. If it's too easy, that's not a problem. You start off with something light, you put more energy, more tension into it. The minute you get to that stiff area, it doesn't mean the whole foot is going to feel stiff, but when you get to that knot, even the lightest glass bottle you might feel is too much. So find it first, okay? And then I'm using the second foot now on top and just pushing down. And this is because I've done this 100 times and over, so I'm used to it. You don't have to do this. You breathe, you hold. It also helps me to relax the toes. They want to react, and I'm saying, no, don't react. And then coming back. Just gonna go forward on my seat so the hips are not going to be overwhelmed. So again, when you look at the ratio, the knee and ankle, everything we learned in Pilates, we want to make sure the ankle's not going too far back because the tension will be too much on the knee. So having the legs hip width to start with, having the knee above the ankle, having the ball somewhere you can actually feel tension already, because if you need to pull back to feel tension, you've already put the knee in a vulnerable state. So have it hip width, have it in line, then grab position, feel tall, use your core, use your breath. And I'm going to sleep like a baby. So we're going to be just fine. Make sure you drink lots of water, by the way. This is always quite full on for detoxing the body, any type of massage really. So around the big toe, it's quite hard to keep hold of the ball, but really worth paying attention. Go around, find all the knots. I'm going to do a side position. So it's really important to imagine you're literally on the floor, even though your foot is off the ground. You don't want the ankle or the toe to be higher than each other. We want to keep the same level. Okay, then when I get to the outside of the big toe, where we did that toe correction earlier especially, you're going to find tension. If we just squash the ball between the 2 feet, then you can just roll it back and forth. If you find you can do that nicely. If you find it's better for you to just hold. It's quite intense. So with the toe correction, by the way, it's definitely something you can inquire at the studio. If you're doing something like that at home, please be gentle. I would suggest when you do reps, if you do reps, that is, if you're not just going to hold and you're going to keep moving or doing any kind of straight sort of tension into that area, start really gentle. Like, I don't know, 4 reps. Do it once a week first, maybe go up to 8. Go slow, okay? A real life story, there was a lady who decided to take that exercise a bit deeper at home, and she used the foot corrector too much, and it actually was a problem. She ended up hurting her foot because it's like redirecting a muscle, so it can be so intense that it actually locked in that place, and took a bit of extra time for her to release and relax that area. So don't overexcite anything that's been dormant for so long. Just think, it's not something, if your big toe has been working incorrectly for years and years, we can't just go, okay, I will change it. Thank you. We want to make sure we look after it and do it gently, gently, okay? So when people go bunions, hereditary, blah, 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 there's all sorts of factual reasons why you get bunions. But if we were doing foot correction regularly, just think how much we could be helping the foot. Don't forget, we have a podiatrist here who can also assist you with any questions you might have. So an insole is one thing, but how the toes react is another. And if your pelvis is stuck in an anterior tilt, this is something you will understand more if you do Pilates with us or anywhere else. Pilates kind of works in neutral. If anterior tilt is happening all the time, that's why we do Pilates, to correct it. And also we do, here we have movement optimization therapy that helps you understand what that means. So you can have a transformational call for an hour on Zoom where we can explain that a bit more for you and give you an assessment. So if you are struggling with pain around your toes all the time, it really tells us a story that you are working in an anterior tilt in your pelvis as well. So that's another reason why your foot might be sensitive at the front, why your tibialis might be sensitive, why you're getting knee pain, etc. So it's worth you checking all these bits out. Okay, so notice with this foot, as I'm going forward, the toes are reacting. There we go. There's more. It's like playing football. The second foot, by the time you're doing the second leg, it's so relaxed. I don't know about you, but I'm finding the body relaxes a little bit more, so it gets really hard to press down. So if I was on a higher stool, maybe it would be a lot easier to maintain. But what we don't want is for the hip flexors to start gripping. It's like clenching teeth, okay? So really working your control, your core strength to lift you, to raise you, to make sure we're using the breath. There we go. And let's get one more. This is the beauty of having more than one. But yeah, this is giveaways. So people, if you want yours, come and get one at the studio. Everyone should have a golf ball. Okay, so that's our time up. We could have spent 1 hour on one leg. Honestly, it's just that I promised an hour. I'm trying to keep my word. We've just gone past it just a smidge, but we started late, so apologies again. We had streaming difficulties, but we got there. So wonderful to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, you can join us on the app, on the community segment, and obviously ask away. But this recording will be made live under the workshop segment. Not live, sorry, it will be there with the presentation, so we'll do a bit of editing. And by Wednesday evening, you will be able to access the full information. The second part of this will be the ankle strengthening and mobility, which will be on the 29th, end of this month. So no time is given because that one will be accessible, not live this time. It will be a recording, but of the highest caliber possibly. My favorite part is that I will be away, sadly, at that point, but hopefully I can give you a nice background to go with the work. So it'll be a little bit of Pilates and a little bit of work and breath. So you can, wherever you are, do it seated or standing. So get prepared. You don't need any props as such. But if you do have a Pilates over ball, the little red ball, about 9 inches, I believe, that will come in handy. If not, just any sort of smallish ball will do. If you don't have that, don't you worry, not a problem. We've still got the strap, a few of these at the studio if you need one, but you can use your own, I don't know, scarf or resistance band, anything like that as well can be used. So yeah, we will use the props we have at home and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Bye bye.